بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضي الله تعالى عنه والسادة التابعين وعلماء عاملين وآئمة أربع مجتهدين ومخالديهم إلى يوم الدين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Welcome to another podcast, Soullutionz. Alhamdulillah.
آله وصحبه وسلم تسليم أفضل الصلاة وتم تسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله ورضي الله تعالى عن إلينا وأئمة أربع مجتهدين مقلديهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. This is another the Soullutionz podcast. I am one of your hosts, Imam Muhammad Abdullah Ameen, along with Amir Khalil, Abdullahi, Imam Malik Robinson, and brother Saleh, Abdul Mujeeb. Tonight's topic is, what is your Aqeedah? What is your creed? And inshallah ta'ala, this is going to be a 3 to 4 part series where we're going to be discussing all the perspective and a few other
Can you hear me?
Texts.
Can you hear me, Muhammad? I'm not sure if it's on my end or if it's on your end. Can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, just type yes in the chat.
It's like real.
Uh-oh. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Don't hear Muhammad. Do you guys still hear Muhammad? Okay. I was trying to figure it out, which one of us was breaking up, because it was going in and out. MashaAllah. I got a little internet signal up here, being up here in the... You can't hear me no more? Abu Muhammad looks frozen, so I'm a little confused. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everybody there? Okay. All right. Inshallah. Okay. Muhammad may have to log out and log back in, inshallah. Well, inshallah, I'll get started until he's able to get everything situated on his end. Because all I see is he's frozen. But anyway, bismillah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. رضي الله تعالى عنه وسادة التابعين وعلماء عاملين وآئمة أربع مجتهدين ومخالديهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. All right, Ikhwan. So what we want to do at this point, there's a podcast. Usually you kind of like, you kick it, and things of that nature. You're talking, and the name of the show is the Soullutionz. And so then where there's a problem, you try to figure out and discuss a solution, behind the issue. And so tonight's topic is from our deen, which is relatively one of the most important aspects that we're going to approach and deal with. Okay, just put it right there, inshallah. Shukran. One of the most important aspects you're going to deal with, but it's also been utilized as one of the dividing factors in the communities in the West. I'm not going to talk about other places. I'm talking about, right here. At the same time, meanwhile, while people are arguing, at that same time, alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, At the same time, people are arguing and disputing with regards, to this particular subject. There are homegrown, corrupt Islamic beliefs that its origin is known here. So we're going to be given a presentation of the concept of Soullutionz, right? Meaning the foundations of our beliefs, where you're going to deal with subjects with Ilm Kalam. This is something that's going to be discussed. Everything's not going to be discussed tonight. We're going to try to be as brief as possible, inshallah. You'll deal with that issue as well. How is it relevant to people, in our time? So just to start off, just give you a little background of familiarity to familiarize with how I'm going to be presenting is based upon the methodology that was used by Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio to Qaddamallah bi Rahmati Ameen. May Allah Ta'ala envelop him in his mercy. Ameen. It was a similar background, a similar situation, which you had in the Bilad of Sudan, i.e. particularly in Hausaland, before everything was corrected and put on that particular path. You had the Muslims. You had quite a few different types of Muslims. Sort of like if you were to try to make a place that's equivalent to what you will learn historically about Hausaland, I think is the closest you'll get to it is Philadelphia. That's the closest you'll get to it. In Hausaland, you had the strong ulama that was strong upon the path of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, in the madhahibs, right? You had those who were strong upon the path of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, but they were laxed in the implementation of the Sharia. You had those Muslims who claimed to be Muslim, but they also mixed kufr in with iman. You had those type of people. And then you had those people who were normally recognized as just basically syncretic Muslims, just the salams only, assalamu alaikum, whatever you want to call them. You had those type of people too. Now, with regards to Aqeedah, you also had those who were spreading the creed of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. He was also, Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio was a contemporary in time during the lifetime of Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab. Okay, he was a contemporary. He lived around the same time. So some of the dawah that he was pushing in the Arabia Peninsula was making its way to the Bilad of Sudan. All right. So you had this is the background you had. So, and this was early on before they got the total, absolute control of the Arabian Peninsula. This was going on. This dawah was going on at the same time. A lot of times you'll find that a lot of the Salafis like to claim Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio and say that he was on the dawah of Muhammad Abdul Wahab, which this was absolutely false. Some say that he met Muhammad Abdul Wahab on Hajj. Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio died, never made Hajj. So, this is just for historical, backgrounds, real brief, okay? Some people probably sitting there like, yo, what are you talking about? What's this got to do with Aqeedah? It's to familiarize you with the background. Everything has to be contextualized. There's no subject that's ever taught outside of context. Like, for instance, one of the books that I'm studying with one of my sheikhs is called Al-Kafaf. It's a book that's studied before you get to the Mukhtasar Khalil. and it's written by Mauritanian scholars. In the desert, in Mauritania is a lot of desert, and a lot of the ulama, they don't live in a city. And one of the tenets for, at least in the Maliki school, is that, you have to live, that people have to congregate, in an area that's considered like a village of the Muslims. Well, was taught in that particular book, or it goes over all of a lot of the babs in the Sharia, except for it doesn't have the chapter dealing with Jum'ah. It doesn't mean they don't believe in Jum'ah, but when the book was written, contextually, to put it in, in its proper context, the region that they were living in, it wasn't a region where they held Jum'ah. So things have to be contextualized, right? I know it's like some things, is how you say it. Some things you'll look at, some people will look at it as a straight black and white, and then some things you'll see that it has to be, molded for what's people in their particular time, and a lot of that you'll get into, especially with fiqh and so on and so forth. In this time, a lot of people make errors with regards to their belief because they're kind of laxed in it. They'll take the approach, they'll challenge things, right, with regards to the Islamic beliefs that they have no backing in it other than their own logic, right? And so then what do they use with their logic? They'll challenge you if you come and say, they'll throw something out. Like, so for instance, they'll say, there's not one ayat or one hadith that you could find that says Christmas is haram, right? This is the new way of people, and so then they'll be like, you tell them an ayat, Allah Ta'ala or the Prophet ﷺ said, avoid don't be like the mushrikeen, etc., etc. And they'll say, no. I'm not accepting that hadith because there's weakness. People have weakness in hadith, but the Quran is perfect. Hadith is narrated by man, so the Quran is perfect. Our chains of tilawah, our chains of recitation of the Quran is preserved by the mouths of men that have a chain that go back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Likewise, the same way you'll find a chain in a hadith that come from a person that learned from another person that take it all the way back to the Sahaba who take it back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Now, you have that person. You have the other person that was doing these particular things prior to Islam, and they become Muslim, and they just never give them up. Like some people, they read horoscopes, right? Reading a horoscope is just as bad as going to the gypsy, the lady with the crystal ball, or asking, the person for their future, what does my future entail, right? These are acts of disbelief. But likewise, the same time, during the dawah of Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, you had Muslims that were worshiping, objects, animals, trees, little statues, and things of that nature, but still referring to themselves as Muslim, and also referring, sometimes add to the object, calling it Allah, right? So, there were a lot of things. What I'm going to mention tonight with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with regards to Allah, are things, these principles that must be known about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? As a Muslim, it's obligatory, it's mandatory on every Muslim to know these particular things. And so that makes it extremely important for you to understand that, right? Now, before I go into that, I want to read you the closing statement of Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio from his book called Kifayata Muhtadin. If you look in if you're on our YouTube, you follow us on YouTube, Tazkiyah Sunnah, there's one where I taught a couple years ago. I taught this book from beginning to end in one session, because it gets right to the point and it doesn't overload you with a lot of information. Now, in the khatam, in the conclusion, he says this, and then we're going to bring it in and we're going to go ahead and get started. He said it's essential for humanity or mankind to be preoccupied with the things that brings about good deeds as a provision of the Aqeedah, of the afterlife. And also your dunya, what is sufficient, with regards to your wealth to take care of your affairs in this deen, right? I mean, in this dunya, I'm sorry, with your livelihood. And then also, you should leave off those things that aren't your concern in your area, right? And stop with that which may cause you some sort of problem, which causes problem. Okay. Then he said you should sit with scholars, with learned people, looking them in the eyes and having respect for them, and remaining silent when he teaches, right? Not to overtalk them, because that's a habit that you have sometimes in a lot of our halakas. You got the side teacher, you got the distracted student, the one who's always scrolling his Facebook, updating his Snapchat and everything while the daughters is going on, right? And you have those people that really don't have any regard for knowledge, or the people who sacrifice their time to learn knowledge, right? There's no big eyes and little U's. It doesn't put you down, right? But however, in our society, we don't uphold knowledge to be sacred unless it's connected to you gaining some sort of wealth. Versus Islamic knowledge, it is the knowledge that'll benefit you and motivate you to do good deeds, which is the provisions for yourself for the hereafter. And then you have the knowledge, this dunyawi knowledge, right? That also helps you with your akhirah, because the sadaqah, the money that you develop, and you're able to take care of your family, you're able to donate to build your jama'ah, and so on and so forth. So all of it benefits you in this life and also in the hereafter. But what the Sheikh is talking about with regards to this, those things that doesn't have the concern, it's not upon every person to be able to argue the intricate or minute details with regards to the issues in the deen. So knowledge isn't a manner, it's a trust. So you have to stop at where your knowledge stops at, right? You don't start making things up. You don't start just like shooting from the hip. You don't look at something and say that don't make sense because we live in America, or these things of that nature. You can't exceed that boundary. Okay, so with that understanding, I want to bring the issue to you where the Sheikh, he mentions the first thing is that he says, I say success is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Success is with Allah. So one, how do we interpret that, internalize that? There's nothing that happens except by the permission of Allah ta'ala. And if you're successful in it, it is Allah who actually granted you. We have to recognize, for the individual, as us as Muslims, we recognize the one who grants us, right? Recognize the one who grants us the ability to achieve things and accomplish things, right? We show gratitude, but we still acknowledge the one who grants you that thing. This is how you become more internal and spiritual with things, right? You recognize, if I was the one that gave you $5, you recognize the fact that it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you still give that gratitude that person aided you and helped you. And this, you'll get the understanding, and usually this is included in what they call a hadith al-rahmah, about showing gratitude. And usually you learn that's usually your first hadith that you learn when you're studying, especially sciences, and with the science of hadith or narrating hadith, you learn that hadith al-rahmah, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who shows mercy to creation, the one ar-Rahman, he shows mercy to them as well, right? This is like a summed up rough translation of it. But this is what you learn, and this is one of the first benefits that you'll learn from your when you're studying Islam, is that not only are you getting it to benefit yourself, but you also have to have mercy on humanity and mankind. And why is that? To provoke, because when you get knowledge, you become a certain level of harsh, right? You develop a certain level of harshness when you deal with people, especially an arrogant scholar. And this is stuff you'll learn in the science dealing with to soul, purifying the soul. The more you increase in knowledge, right? The more you increase in knowledge, if a person doesn't have a control over themselves, the more you increase in knowledge, the more arrogant you become. And when you learn a thing, you become a transmitter of that thing. When you learn it, you understand it, you become a transmitter of that thing. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, "Balighu anni walau ayat." Convey for me, even if it's only one verse, right? So you become a transmitter of what you learn. And so the part of that transmission, not only are you learning the information, to transmit the information, but you also have to develop the character, and be characterized just like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was characterized when he was dealing with humanity and was left behind of his noble sunnah, his noble characteristic, in his practice, in his way, that you have compassion for people when you're calling them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we recognize that the tawfiq, that the success is from Allah. And he says, realize the word in Arabic is alamu, right? Alamu. I promise you'll know where it's at and familiar with it in the Quran, in Surah Fatiha. The first ayat, let's just get to it. In the ayat, Alhamdu Lillahi Rabbil, that word, Alameen, it is the derivative, is the derived form from the word alamu, right? Which is cosmos, everything in existence, particles, even the little nanobites and molecules you can't see with the naked eye that you have to put it under. All of that is haduthi, right? Hadithi. I'm sorry. In time creation. Okay? In time creation. Now, what does that mean? It has an origin. Everything that's walking around, moving, that you see, that you can't see, that's in existence, has a beginning and an ending. In time creation. If a person is moving, he's throwing punches, he can do it fast or he can go slow, right? In time create, it be connected to time. If he's walking forward, walking back, jumping up, jumping down, sitting down, whatever the case is, old, young, it is given a definition of time and space, right? So we have to understand that, and everything that you have within creation, in time creation, has attributes to it of in time creation, right? Everything. So when you understand that, then you'll understand that the very gist of Tawheed, our belief system, is disassociating anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The mind has to be pure of that, and the heart has to be pure of that, of detaching and disassociating anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Now, so this is something that is extremely important. Excuse me 1 second. So this is something that is extremely important for us to understand this and grasp this particular concept. In another text, the Shaykh, who also simplifies the language, right? He says that everything within alamu, once again, creation, is from the arsh, right? This is mentioned in the Quran, the arsh. The arsh is the most magnificent, and it signifies the grandeur and the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? To creation, to us. Okay, that's what it signifies, right? And that is created. It's mentioned in the Quran that arsh is created, and he said, which is the highest thing in creation on down to the lowest, which is the earth, which is down to the lowest, which is the earth. This is all end time creation, and its maker is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah tells you in the Quran, Allahu khalaqa kulli shay. Allah ta'ala created everything that exists, right? So even whatever you think, if you think the internet is something new, that internet will not work by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how you got to embody that, right? Everything. So then you have to understand next is that it's absolutely necessary for the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now see, when you comparing and you're doing your study, if you do comparative things, right? We study some of the philosophy or the theories of the non-Muslims and see how does it contradict Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How does it, how do we reject it as kufr, right? You had the what was his name? I think his name was Charles Darwin. Okay. He had this concept called the Big Bang Theory, right? It just came together, combustion came together, and that's how creation came into being. He also had another theory about evolution, right? Where people evolved, and so they believe that evolved from monkeys and so on and so forth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what? Allahu khalaq Allahu kulli shay. Allah created everything, right? And some say that there's no creator, that's how they get around the creator, because if there's an existence of the creation, then the creator has to exist. And so their logic, their way of logic and their belief was to say what? It just came together. It was a combustion of molecules and things together, and it came together. Some people will say, the mind was the creator of everything that exists, and so on and so forth, right? But we, the Muslims, we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always existed, right? But also the proof of that, Allah ta'ala's existence, is the existence of created things. The existence of other created things, the things that exist. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was known as the creator before the existence of creation. Right? So these type of things that are necessary for us to know. There's no Muslim, you're not a Muslim if someone says, do you believe Allah exists? And you say, I don't know. This is kufr. Right? This is disbelief. You don't say, I don't know. Right? So, and if you say no, this is also kufr, right? Because what does Allah Ta'ala say in the Quran? He says that the believer, they do what? Yu'minu billahi, wa he believes in Allah, wa rasulihi, thumma lam yatarbu. And after that, he doesn't have any doubt after that, right? So you don't have any doubt that Allah Ta'ala exists, right? So when you affirm this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, then you'll be able to understand that not only did Allah Ta'ala exist, does Allah Ta'ala exist, but you'll also understand that Allah Ta'ala is pre-eternal. He existed before time. And this is why it was so important for me to mention this. Well, the scholar, he wrote this in his book, our West African scholars, right? It's so important to mention this, that you have to understand everything that exists, right, is in time creation, right? Everything that exists is in time creation, and it was created in time creation. The simplest way to understand in time creation is all of us have a birth date. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from that. Allah always existed, right? So then if you understand that Allah Ta'ala exists, you understand that it exists before time, so time is not applicable to Allah Ta'ala, right? 6 directions, up, down, left, right, back, forth. These aren't applicable to Allah. So then what's the next thing to know? That there is, Allah Ta'ala is baqi. There's no ending to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does this tell you with those who have the belief of Christians or similar to them? Christians believe that Jesus is God. So many of them, right? Well, Isa ibn Maryam, as we know him as Muslims, right? Jesus, Isa, the son of Mary, He was born through a vaginal canal, right? So therefore, what does that mean? This can't be your Lord. Because Allah Ta'ala always existed and there's no beginning date for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Okay, let's say that you may have a Christian that said, you know what? Absolutely, I don't believe God was born, but you believe that he died as well. He died for your sins. This is a major part of their dawah, right? And I want you to, learn this and take this back to your family, right? This is a major part of their dawah. This is a major part they believe. He died for your sins. Well, we know that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the creator of everything in existence, doesn't die. He didn't die, right? Humanity will come to a point it'll cease to exist, and this is the thing that Allah Ta'ala warns you, and the Prophet ﷺ warns you about that time of Yawm al-Akhir, right? That last day where it'll be the heavens and earth will be rolled up, everything in it, right? That trumpet will be blown, everything will be rolled up, it'll be blown again, everything will come back to life, even those who are dead. If you burned your ashes, spread them all over the ocean, your body will be reassembled and you'll stand before Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and you'll be questioned about those things here. This is why our behavior, we monitor our behavior, we monitor our speech, we're careful about what we eat, we're careful about the money we spend, how we spend our money, the kind of money we accumulate, we're careful about the way we dress. Right? The more you're concerned about it, the stronger is a sign, is an indication that you have strong iman. A person who believes in that strong, the existence of Allah Ta'ala in a strong manner, as the Prophet ﷺ said when he was asked, what is ihsan? What is that excellence in your spirituality? The Prophet ﷺ said is that you worship Allah Ta'ala as though you see him, right? Worship Allah Ta'ala as you see him. Now, of course, before you reach that level in your Islam, you have to understand that Allah Ta'ala is not like creation, which we're building up to, which we already started, right? Allah is Mawjood. He's existing before time, right? I mean, Allah is Mawjood. He exists. Then he's also pre-existing before time, right? He's pre-existed before
Qadim.
There's no death, no eternal, right? So there's no death to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, right? So this is something that you have to understand, that there's no ends. Now, once you understand 1, 2, 3, those 3 things, then you have to understand without a shadow of a doubt that Allah Ta'ala is mukhalif lil hawadith. He is absolutely different from the existence of created things, right? So this also, with this time, we're saying that Allah Ta'ala always existed, and that Allah Ta'ala will not cease, will not cease existence, will come to an end. You also have to understand there is no specific place or residence for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, because then that means that Allah Ta'ala is dependent upon creation, right? That's what this means. So when your mind, in the mind, our intellectual capacity, we can't comprehend of something existing without there being a foot for them to stand on a floor. Because our minds automatically and immediately goes to start thinking about created beings, such as ourselves. Feet touching the ground, right? And we already mentioned in the beginning that everything that's in existence, from the arch, from the throne on down to the ground that you walk upon, is all created, right? The air that where people, miraculously, they're mesmerized with that, where people are able to levitate off the ground, right? People pay money in order to go see. I don't even know who the new magician is. When I was growing up, it was David Copperfield. I don't know who the big boy is now, right? But people will pay money to go see a magician, to basically fool your optical, your vision, and you seeing that man. So anyway, that man floating off of the ground. Anyway, to proceed on. So Allah Ta'ala is different. He's mukhalif lil hawadith. He's different from created things. All right. Now, if we were to stop there, this is sufficient. If we were to stop there, this is sufficient. Now, the thing with this is, the theory is that the Nation of Islam who claim to be Muslim. Just because they use the term Islam and uses Islamic phrases, that does not make them Muslim. They have a belief in their belief system that Allah created himself, right? It almost sounds like kind of jazzy. He created himself. The creator created himself in triple darkness. Darkness is connected to time and space. You need an attribute to define and, define. You could not be a human being unless you have, even though I know people are trying to do it now, which is also another path of kufr, is denying, right, you being a male or female. Absolutely. They're trying to redefine themselves. They're trying to be without attributes. And only Allah Ta'ala is the one who's Ghani. He is, free from being in need of anything. We need our pigmentation to give us definition of who we are, right? Sometimes you ever talk to a white person, right? And you see them that they're reluctant to be like, the black guy over there, because usually black people are like, oh, man, why you gotta be black? What is it? They're usually reluctant, right? They're just trying to use the person, use it as a description. We got them in a pickle. They can't, they don't feel comfortable just saying black because they're trying to be trained, trained to think anti the opposite of racism, right? But your color is an attribute of yours, right? Just like your gender is an attribute of yours. It's part of you. It's part of your makeup, right? And this is something that Allah Ta'ala has given us. So we understand that Allah is different from creation. He's not a body, and he's not an attribute of body, right? And he's not in a direction. Why? Because direction is created. It's part of entire creation, right? If you think, you close your eyes and you think of something or someone or something levitating, know that your mind is drifting towards disbelief. You have to bring it back in. You can't think like this about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So with that, the next thing we go into, if there's no direction, then there's no makan, there's no place, no designated residence, right? Most of the time when people think of up, the heavens are up, but most people think of up, they think, oh, God is up. Right? You have to be careful of that description and that location that you're giving that GPS. Right? You have some people that are ridicule other Muslims who specify that. Now, what happens is that people will build momentum and movements based on that to fight in the opposing party. People that have the belief of what they call a hashawiyah, right? Which we'll get into later on. That's in the later on down the line. But those are the people that stuff Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a location in their mind intellectually. Now, so anyway, so we're moving on. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he's Ghani, he's independent, he's not dependent upon time, place, or description. He's not. Right? So this is where it gets to, and it refutes, because everyone who has a God that is their God, I'm talking about what they worship, their false God that's created, is attributes usually resembles the people that worship that God. What do I mean by that? Buddha is Asian, right? The Hindu God is a funny looking guy, though. They got that dude with the 8 arms, and then you got the cow, right? But when it's a human being, like Christians, everybody's Jesus is pretty much their own nationality, except black people. Black people worship white Jesus, right? Korean people got a Korean looking Jesus. Russian people got or Eastern European people have an Eastern European Jesus, a version of, their Jesus, and so on and so forth. So therefore, they utilize this to describe who their God is. And so then if your God is from your background, your tribe, then wouldn't that give you such a sense of supremacy, right? And this is why you have white supremacy, all right? Like, well, Jesus Christ, Jesus is white. He's a white man, right? That's how they feel. So you have to understand that. If you understand this, that Allah Ta'ala is free from all of this.
Say it again. Say it again like that again.
That Allah Ta'ala is free from all of that.
No. You said the white. That was funny.
So, you understand that? That is understanding the essence of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, right? That Allah Ta'ala exists, right? That Allah Ta'ala is pre-existent. He exists before time. That Allah Ta'ala will exist when creation ceased to exist. How many millions and billions of people are dying that don't exist, but Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala still exists? Allah Ta'ala doesn't, his existence is not perpetuated on created things, right? So you have to understand that. When you understand this, that is understanding the essence of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, right? Then there's the next thing where you're talking about, and after this, I'm gonna stop. Matter of fact, I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna let Muhammad do his portion here, inshallah. I'll stop there because like I said, we're gonna do this as a series. So the solution to this particular problem is that we're trying to educate people, and that they learn, and those who are already learning, take the information back to your people, and you can get benefit from here. Take it to your people, inshallah. Now, go ahead, Muhammad, inshallah. I'm going to stop here, inshallah. Is Abu Muhammad ready? Because I ain't see his face come on.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
I'm ready. You know what I mean? So I just saying where you went over the 13. We was going over the 13 attributes that Ilahiyat. I wanted to touch on a little bit from the Risala. And the Risala is a text that Imam Ibn Abi Zayd Qarwani, rahimahullah, who lived in the he was born in the 300 Hijra, 200, the late 200 Hijra, and he died in 300 Hijra. And this text, he did this text when he compiled this text for children when he had reached the age 17. Now they called him the little Malik because he memorized the Quran by the time he was 7, and he memorized the Muwatta by the time he was 10 years old. And during his time in history was when the Fatimis, or the Ubaydiyah, which was a branch of the Shia, they had spread throughout North Africa. So during this particular time was when a lot of deviant beliefs had spread throughout West Africa, Northern Africa. He was born in Al-Andalus, but he was raised in Qarwan. But his lineage comes through Qarwan. He's like, between him and Imam Malik, it's like two imams. Three imams between him and Imam Malik. You have Imam Yahya Afriki, who was the imam that was sent to Sicily, actually to be killed, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them victory, and Sicily became a caliphate upon the Amal of Ahlul Medina. And before him, you had Imam Sahnun, and then you had Imam Qasim, and then Imam Malik. So it was three imams between him and Imam Malik. And in this text, mind you, this text was written for children. It's pretty much some of the same some of the same wording in regards to the ilahiyat that is mentioned, and I'm only going to go over a few things. All right, and in his treaty, I mean, this treaty was compiled to give the student the basic fundamental beliefs of the Muslims at that time, and the fact that he was the first that was refuting the Shia. So there's some things in this text. There was some things in this text that he mentioned that were necessary for him to mention, to teach, for the children to learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is separate from his creation and impossible to be on the earth. In the same manner in which the explanation of the hadith of the Imam Nawawi's explanation of the hadith of the slave girl in Sahih Muslim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not on the earth, and that he's not in the direction, and the aboveness is above being above in status, you know, and stature, not in direction or place. All right. So also this is one of the texts that you when you first start getting into the method, this is like the first text, which all the texts before this one is like preschool text, like the Aqeedah. Normally, you know, so they learn that at 4 years old, 3 and 4 years old, like in preschool. Then the depending on the area that you're in, the Murshid al-Mu'in, it goes a little bit into more detail, and then you have the Kitab al-Jamia, where Imam Ibn Abi Zayd Qarwani, he explains what is meant by the Amal of Ahlul Medina, and many of the narrations in that is from Imam Malik, that transmitted from Imam Malik back from Imam Ibn Abi Zayd Qarwani back to Imam Malik, and some of his statements. And then you get into the Risala. Normally when I learned this text, before we went over this text, my teacher taught us this text. He went over the Kitab al-Jamia, you know, explaining what is meant by the Amal of Ahlul Medina. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. باب ما تنطق به لا لسات سنات وتعتقد أفعدات من واجبه أمور ديانتي. Is that thickness, and what is wajib, what is wajib, obligatory, and obligatory of the duties that are on the tongue to express, and that the heart must believe. And he says, min dhalika imanu bi qalbi wa nutqu bi lisani, anna Allah illahu wahidu, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. La ilaha ghayruhu, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we testify with the mouth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and that there is none else but him. Wala sharika wala shabiha lahu, ولا نظير له ولا ولد له ولا والد له. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there is none like unto him, and that there is none equal to him, and that he has no son and nor father. He has no son nor father, no offsprings. Wala sahibatu lahu, that he has no companions. Wala sharika lahu, that there is none like unto him. There's none like him. Laysa awaliyatihi ibtida'u wala akhiriyatihi anqida'u. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has no beginning and nor end, and his attributes are beyond description. Wala yuhitu bi amrihi. ولا لن يكون كنا صفاته ولا وصفاته ولا يحيط بأمره. And that the human mind cannot embrace him, and those who are learned, and that متفقون كورونا ويعتبر متفكرون بآياته ولا ينتفكرون في مائيات ذاته. And that from his signs, and they can only learn of himself, or embrace a part of his knowledge if he allows it. All right, so this explains that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the purpose of knowing and knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that you reach understanding, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you understanding of him. And this is part of what Allah ta'ala want best for you, right? That he gives you yufaqahu fi din wa yufaqahu bihi. That he gives you understanding of the deen, he gives you understanding of him. The purpose is to actually to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna allow you to have knowledge of him, and by his mercy keep you from doing acts of disobedience, and give you the ability to do the acts of obedience. So that I wanted to stop here. To ask, because we want to expand this out to where we don't want to cram too much down your throat. So that these are the basic beliefs that we have to understand about understand about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we utilize this as our foundation and our soundness. So inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to stop here. Subhanallah, hold on. I wanted to stop here and let Abdul Mujeeb take take over. You know what I'm saying? Say what give his presentation if he's ready.
You got unmute yourself, Sheikh.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Once again, everybody, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, brothers, for informing us with the proper belief system of Ahl Sunnah. As we see, is far detail, and we're just getting into the essence of it, right? The essence of it, and I don't think I got too much, I got in where Imam Khalil was already speaking, but as we know, dealing with this Aqeedah, right? Because I'm just gonna, just refine some of the things that we all heard, what we all heard them say. For one, we must know, right? We must know that if we, it's things that we must believe if we are, we reach, the state of mukallaf, right? Where it says, أول واجب على المكلف معرفة الله تعالى وهي أن تؤمنون بأن الله تعالى موجود ليس بمعدوم. So for one, for going here, it says that it's obligatory for everyone, right? Everyone. أول واجب على المكلف. So everyone who is legally responsible, right? Meaning that reach pubescent, and pubescent, or that reach pubescent, or a mukallaf is one who reached pubescent, who what we could say is that they what identifies someone as a mukallaf, that they have legal age which they reach pubescent, that according to the Shafi school, we have some of the Malikis. I call them the 10 hut Salat boys, right? The 10 hut Salat boys, mashallah. But according to the Shafi school, we say that the mukallaf is the one who reached pubescent, that the dawah of Islam reached them, right? That they also, that some of their senses worked, meaning that they can hear, they see their senses works. And this is upon the people to know this. And to know what? As we said, that we must know, that we must believe, أن تؤمنون بأن الله تعالى موجود, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, right? ليس بمعدوم, right? ليس بمعدوم, right? And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that he is not non-existent, right? But one of the other things I really wanted us to touch on when it's dealing with this, right? That we also must know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wahid. And when we hear this wahid, right? It means one, but not one in number, right? Not one in number, but one in his actions and his lordship. That he has partners with no thing, right? So we must know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wahidun, la musharaka lahu fi dhatihi, wa la fi sifatihi, wa la fi af'alihi, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one with no partners, with nothing that is associated with him, that shares anything with him, right? And that along with that we must know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, what else did he says? That he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one in his what? His dhatihi, his essence, his entity, right? Wala fi sifatihi, right? In his attributes, in his sifat, in his attributes. Wala fi af'alihi, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, along with that, he's one in his attribute, his entities and his attributes, along with his actions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does what he will. He doesn't have to, what we say here that we have to ask someone what to do with something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does what he wills at any time to his creation. So we must know this as believers as well. So we must keep in mind with these basic things. So they really touched on a lot of the things that we need to touch on. Like, I kind of, I'm just kind of touching bases with what they are saying. Because, these are the things that, a lot of us Muslims now, we lack really the understanding. Like when he spoke of, when Imam Khalil spoke of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Qadim, right? That he is eternal without any beginning. Eternal, that's what I would like to say, that he's eternal without any beginning. And then saying, Laysa bihadith, right? And he spoke of that, everything here exists within time and space. That we have a beginning, a middle, and a now. So we had the past, right? We had the past, right? We had the of the as of now, and we also have the future. All these things consist of time and place and space. So these are the things that we must know, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free of any of these things, that he exists without any of these things necessary for him, because these are things that was created from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So these are the things that us as Muslims, we must know. And for us, to start off by trying to memorize some of these small texts, right? Imam Khalil, just a question for you, Habibi. Is this something that we're going to, how long are we going to do these things? How long are we going to have this program when it consists of Aqeedah? Are we going to get into the prophethood and all these other things as well?
We're going to go all the way to the end. So we probably hit like a little 5-6 piece on this joint.
Okay, so sure. So we can, to me personally, we can really stop there, and then we can get into the other basic attributes, and then get into the prophethood if you would like. Because y'all really touched on to a lot of things with this.
The goal not to finish everything all the night. So that's why.
Yeah, that's when
remember we talked about it. It's kind of like we overlapping, but we're also showing that the text that we're using is from different time periods throughout the existence of of time. Right now, different time period. The book that I was quoting from and reading from was written back in like 17. I don't know why he was over here trying to America, like 1780, maybe 1770.
And just to show y'all, they're going over Maliki text. If we see here, if I can let y'all see, this is coming from Al-Maqasid by Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala. And these are the same text. If we see that the scholars are saying all the same thing, from as the Sheikh said, from different time periods, right? So I was, just going over, just the small thing, just like I said, just to elaborate with what y'all was saying and what we were speaking on the show, that Ahl Sunnah all was connected by all saying the same. That this is what Ahl Sunnah really is. And it wasn't in the same region. Exactly.
So that's what the attempt is, to expose, because sometimes we think like, oh, only this period had this, or only these place had this, or only that place. You're trying to broaden, across the board. You're showing you African scholarship. You're showing Andalusia is like considered part of Europe. Showing that Imam Nawawi is from Syria, from Shem. So we're showing you this, right? But these are the beginning texts. That what it is what these texts are to us is an extraction of the main points from the Quran about our belief system. Because every attribute that's mentioned, there's an ayah and a hadith to go with it. So what this is, an extraction, like a brief extraction, that you get certain concepts and principles. Because sometimes you can become Muslim and read the Quran and you start, you still, and if your mind hasn't been purified with the proper, the proper tawheed, right? The proper belief system, right? You will be attributing, like for instance, like I gave you an example earlier, the Nation of Islam, if you ask them who they worship, they'll tell you Allah. but they believe that Allah created himself out of triple darkness, right? So these type of things, these things are being said, with regards to the belief with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And then also we equipped you with enough to refute, beliefs like people who are the atheists. They say, there ain't no God. Well, we say it is. As a matter of fact, we don't just say it. We know it because the Quran is the ultimate communication between the creator and creation, right? So, you can say it in two ways. Intellectually, you have intellectual proof, and you also have textual proof. What is intellectual proof? Intellectual proof is the proof that you gather through your rationale, but it does not contradict what Allah nor His Messenger says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when it doesn't contradict it, then it's accepted as sound, right? What is textual proof? Textual proof is from the Quran and from that of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those narrations that are sound from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regards to our belief, right? So, in the intellectual ability of bringing together rationale or dalil, if you will, proof, if you will, right? It has to be in line with the Quran and the narration, the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It can't go rogue, right? So therefore, when you find that, when that starts contradicting that, that's when you bring about a lot of argumentation, disputation, which we're gonna get into that too. We're gonna get into it. Trust me. We're gonna get into talk about that whole concept of arsh and feet, hands, eyes, arm, leg, arm, and head. You know what I'm saying? So we gonna get into it, right? But right now, what's important is these foundational things, because it is an extraction so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are things that you have to know. And what I'll mention is just real quick, the opposite. I mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, right? Now the impossibility, because a lot of people, when you use the word impossible, right? Mustahil, they be like, what the hell are you talking about? Ain't nothing impossible for Allah ta'ala. Aha, there is. Before you get all hype, get ready to spread that, hear me out. What is impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We know that Allah ta'ala exists, right? So we know that what's impossible is non-existence. It's impossible for Allah ta'ala to be non-existent, right? We know that everything in creation, from the arsh on down to the earth, is in-time creation. What's impossible is that Allah is part of in-time creation, right? We know that Allah ta'ala exists before time, right? What's impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah ta'ala ceased to exist or have a beginning, right? So we know that it's impossible for Allah ta'ala to cease to exist or come to an end, right? Because why? What does that contradict? That Allah ta'ala has no ending. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mukhalif lil hawadith, that He's the opposite of creation. He's not like creation, not resembling creation in any way, shape, form, or fashion. If your mind leans towards that and try to attribute to Allah a corporal body, a limited space, a place, all of these things, it contradicts what Allah ta'ala says, where He says, Laysa kamithlihi shay'un, right? That Allah ta'ala does not resemble His creation in any way, doesn't resemble anything in any way, right? So when you understand this, and then we also mentioned that Allah ta'ala was ghani, that He's absolutely rich, enriched, independently enriched, right? We ain't talking about like the independent woman who grab a Louis bag, and she's independent, but she's dependent on that gig, right? Or that money to come in to keep her independence, right? Or that man that don't need nobody, he got everything for himself. No. Allah Ta'ala is different from that. You can't even begin to fathom in your mind. When you speak independent, your independence have limitation. Your body, check it out. I'm going to show you how you have no control over anything. You can hold your nose and cover your mouth to stop breathing. Your lungs will force you to open your mouth and force you to push open your fingers in order for you to get air to breathe. That's how grand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. You can't even control your breathing. If you wanted to stop breathing, you need instruments to help you. And even then, you still not guaranteed that you're gonna die. I have a work friend that he tried to kill himself, and he's still here to this day. Literally, he hung himself. And before that oxygen cut off, somebody arrived at his home and cut him down and told him, how stupid he was for trying to kill himself. But that's the reality. So you not only are you learning what's wajib, what's mandatory for you to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you just also learn what is impossible to believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, I'll stop there, inshallah. Anybody else got any closing statements before we get out of here? I don't want to drag it out, be long, because we're gonna be coming over, a series,
As of right now, for the listeners, is a great time for y'all to ask questions. Is a very great time for y'all to ask questions, because this is something that we cannot do taqlid when it comes to the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot blind follow when it comes to learning Aqeedah. So anything as of right now, if you learned a particular things when it comes to belief from a particular group or from a particular set, is a good thing while we are going over the beginning. Before we get into depth, just the basic now, because this is where we didn't even touch the surface. We didn't even skin anything. So just to get some of the ideas and any questions what you missed or you didn't understand, please ask now while we are going over this little bit as of now. This is the best time. Wallahi, this is the best time to ask questions. So any questions from anybody? Don't be scared to say you don't know.
Might have been clear.
Now the one thing I wanted to mention about the Risala is that the next part that I speak about in the Risala that I go over in the Risala is getting into the Quran. And as you listen, you're gonna see to where part of an ayah is mentioned in the Quran, and then some of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is mentioned about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Amir Khalil have touched on a few of them already. We'll see how it goes into what is proven by the Quran and what is proven by Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the reality is that we also must have to keep in mind is that we have to know what is the difference between what is the creation, and what is the creator. I mean, and the creator, and that like we have the what's necessary, like what the prop what Amir Khalil had mentioned, what is necessary, what is possible, and what is impossible, what is wajib, jahiz, and mustahil. That's also connected to what is the three attributes that are in everything that is a creation. You have the jawhar, a particle, the audit, a attribute of a particle, and the jism, a body, and that two or more audits make a jism, make a body. I mean, two or more particles make a body. So everything besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a body. It has a modality. It has a form. It has something that is associated with the creation, and that is not the creator. So we have to understand that, and that however, though some people who are already students of creed, they may already know these things, but some people who are not, like Abdul Mujeeb said, it's best to ask questions to get clarity. Because the purpose of having the proper creed, having the correct creed, is to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the whole purpose, to know Allah.
I think we probably was clear. You know, I was, you know, because we're talking about Allah, I was gonna, you know, show something where is a particular person saying that, you know, Haqiqi isn't really used in Aqeedah when it you know when it comes out, and we all heard this person say it, but
Well, we
in our
gonna
own,
get into it. Save it, because we gonna get into it.
And you know, and the text that here is clear that it's used, you know, but
We gonna get into it. We gonna get into it. We just got to give it gradual build up. This enough, this for those, especially because you got to remember, sometimes you have people that watches, you know, tune in, and they may not have, you know, ever ran into this information. So you want to give them the gradual build up. You know what I mean? Give them the gradual build up.
So I'm gonna be petty draws once we hang up, and I'm gonna show, you know, the contradiction.
Yeah, so we, you know, it's a build up process. You don't want to overload them. That's why we only talked about, you know, those few things. Inshallah, matter of fact, you look at it, we even under 2 hours. We're not even 2 hours in, because you know it's show's scheduled for 2 hours, but we're under 2 hours. So inshallah.
See, but that's the beauty of not ranting and just learning that you got what you have and what you needed in under 2 hours. Anything else is, as Imam Khalil said, will be overloading you, and what you learn is going to go right out the window because we hit you with something else that diverted you from what you needed to know. So for everyone who's watching, can y'all tell us, did we do a great job by just going over this basic stuff as of right now? Because we're, like we said, we're going to get into detail. So inform us if we're doing a great job. Tell us, you know, should we slow down a little bit more, explain some of these things, these terminologies a little bit better, so y'all can take notes. And on top of that, now we just don't want y'all in here, because now this is where the students now, the talib al-ilm, right? The Prophet said, "Faridun ala talib al-ilmi, faridun ala kulli muslimin wa muslima," in another riwayah. So this is seeking knowledge is obligatory for every man and every Muslim woman. So y'all need to sit here and start seeking. You know, we're giving it to you. Take your notes. Take notes. And if you have anything with some certain terminologies, we'll slow down and we'll explain it too. You know, inshallah ta'ala. So any questions? Are we doing a good job? Can y'all inform us? Are we doing a good job with what we're going over as well? We also would like your criticism too. What'd you say?
I said we got the good video, y'all. That's a comment. See? So I guess we're doing a good job. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. All right, so inshallah, we'll I guess we conclude tonight's podcast. You know, it's a little different from our norm. Don't worry, we'll get back to it where we let Mr. Petty Draws, you know, loose. We get on here, stir up the pot, get controversial. And my man Sheikh Muhammad get hyped, stop calling you Jack. All right. You know what I mean? We'll get back to it. Right now, you know, inshallah, it's more informal and educational portion of Soullutionz, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Muhammad, you can close us out with a dua, inshallah.
Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad al-Fatih lima uqlika wa qatimi lima sabaq nasr al-haq bil-haq wa hadi ila siratika al-mustaqim wa ala alihi haqqa qadrihi miqdarihi al-azim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم آمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Walaikum salam. Don't forget to like, share, you know, spread it to others, inshallah. The information goes a long way. Each one teach one. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.